Dear students, I welcome you for a discussion about the ISC Home Science Theory paper, where I'll be discussing previous year's question papers. I had already finished discussing the objective type questions, which are compulsory and are given in part 1 and is about 20 marks. And today we move on to the subjective questions, which forms part 2 of the question paper. You have to attempt any 5 questions out of the given 8 questions in the question paper. Each question carries 10 marks and has got subdivisions where each of 5 marks each. So it is not that each question is entirely 10 marks, but it is divided into maybe 2 or 3 questions, each carrying 5 marks or less, so that the total marks per question is 10 marks. The topics on which you will be examined on are food preparation, storage and preservation of food, meal planning for the family, resource management, consumer protection, human development, textile and clothing. So let's first begin with the first chapter, food and preparation, and see what type of questions have been asked in the previous years from this chapter. Since these are subjective type questions, you have to explain in detail, keeping in mind once again that key words are very essential. So from food preparation, I have chosen a question from the year 2019, that is, as you can read, cooking is a means of processing food to make it fit for human consumption. In this context, discuss the advantages of using pressure cooker to cook food, merits and demerits of cooking food. You can write the answer in this manner, like advantages of cooking food in a pressure cooker could be that the nutrients are retained, the food gets properly cooked and is easily digestible, the taste and flavor of the food doesn't get spoiled, time is saved, a very important factor, less water is used than the boiling method, multiple food can be cooked at one go, and another last important point is that the food is sterile and safe to be consumed. And if we look at the second part of this question, which again is for 5 marks and includes merits of cooking food. The student is supposed to write about the merits, which could be, it makes the food easily digestible, destroys anti-nutritional factors, means those reasons which makes the food hard to digest, and it also releases many nutrients and makes them into a simple form. That means, like for example in carbohydrates, it breaks down the complex sugar molecules into simple molecules, makes the proteins easily digestible for the human body. But there are certain demerits also, that during the process of cooking, vitamins get destroyed, or overcooking of food may cause production of carbon products which are not useful for the human body. The water that is used for cooking contains a lot of essential nutrients like vitamins, minerals, etc. And at the same time, certain flavors are also lost. In spite of that, food has to be cooked. So please keep these points in mind if you are get a question to answer in this form. Another question from this chapter, which has come in the previous year, explain the importance of fat while cooking food. If you look at the importance of fat while cooking food, Fat, we find, helps to make, when fat is heated up, it changes into oil, and it makes the food easily digestible. And helps in cooking at a faster rate than boiling, etc. Then we can expect a question like, what precautions needs to be taken to minimize loss of nutrients during cooking? That could be another question. Then 2018, a question had come, what is the science of food preparation based on? And how will we understand the changes that occur in food during cooking? And here they had asked us, what happens when carbohydrates and proteins are cooked? That was for 5 marks. Then how can we enhance or improve the nutritive value of foods? So, cooking, as we know, in this process brings about physical and chemical changes, and that has been asked in the year 2017. That is, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of boiling? Then how does the nutritive value change in food during the process of cooking? Again for 5 marks. Advantages, disadvantages, as you can see, can be written in a tabular form. Like advantages of cooking would be simple method of cooking, doesn't require much equipments, the food gets uniformly cooked, easily digestible, and we need not use any form of fat. So ideal for people who are suffering from any particular diseases and who find difficulty in digesting the food. But there are certain disadvantages also. It is a slow method and hence consumes a lot of fuel. There is loss of vitamin B and C because we discard the water after boiling, and too much of continuous and excessive boiling damages the structure of the food and its texture. Sometimes even the color is lost, which does not make the food look very attractive. So these are some questions which we can expect. Then in this, as you can see how they have mentioned it, the answer to this would be that cooking brings about desirable and non-desirable changes in the nutritive value, vitamins, minerals, water, which has been lost in the water during the food being cooked. Now let us see how cooking is good as well as non-desirable. So the desirable factor of cooking food is that we are able to get the nutritive value of most of the foods, and we can cause a variation of taste, appearance, texture in the dish, so that becomes attractive. Then it can be enhanced. The nutritive value of the food can be enhanced by using methods like sprouting, fermentation, combination. Now what is sprouting? Sprouting means we soak a particular type of pulse for a short while in water, say for a few days, and then when it starts germinating, definitely the protein is in a simpler form and is more nutritious. Fermentation. Curd is one of the examples of fermented food, which is again a very important food in our diet because fermentation increases the probiotic form of the food. Combination, like when we combine dal and rice to make khichdi, definitely the nutritive value is enhanced. Or in for children, when we add rice to milk to make kheer, that again increases the nutritive value and is easy to digest for a child. At the same time, we find that during the process of cooking, Many vitamins, minerals, water is lost. Hence, for this matter, the water should not be discarded in which food has been cooked. Rather, we can use it and add it in curries, or it can be used for kneading dough, for making rotis, chapatis, etc. Then the collagen and elastic protein present in animal food also becomes tough many a times during the process of cooking at high temperature and makes it difficult to digest. Then let's come to another question which was asked in the year 2016, that what are the benefits of using combination food in our diet, and any 5 reasons for cooking of food. Combination food again, why is it so important in our diet? Now many a times we find that if meat, a source of protein, is had by a family, it may turn out to be expensive. So for this reason, it can be substituted by using soya beans, which also is a food containing a high quantity of protein. Better nutritive value cereals many a times are deficient in lysine, while pulses are deficient in methionine. So if we combine dal, a pulse, and rice, a cereal together to make khichdi, definitely the nutritive value of the food is enhanced. So in this manner, combination foods can be chosen while doing meal planning to improve the quality of the diet. Then food is cooked for various reasons: to improve the digestibility, especially the hard beans. The digestive juices easily penetrate once the grains become softer, and the body can easily utilize the proteins and carbohydrates present. Then another good point about cooking is the taste, flavor, and palatability is improved. The taste of the food can be changed according to the meal. Fish and meat undergoes tremendous improvement once it is cooked. The nutrient value also improves for soya beans, legumes, as the trypsin inhibitor increases. It gets destroyed by dry as well as wet cooking methods, thus increasing the nutrient availability. Cooking makes the food safe and definitely improves the shelf life. As we all know, if raw food is kept in the house for a long time, it goes bad. That means a bad odor comes out because microbes act on it. The humidity, the moisture content in the air, etc. may spoil it. But once they are cooked, then we can keep them for a longer time. Milk, for example, if kept in the raw form, will get spoiled. But once we warm up the milk, definitely we find that the microbes or the germs that is found or the bacteria in the raw milk gets killed, and it can be stored for a longer time. So in this manner, we find that each of these answers carry 5 marks. Then cooking also we find improves the variety. That is, it doesn't make it monotonous. Wheat, for example, the form of wheat can be changed into dalia, paratha, chapati, etc. So repetition doesn't take place, and we can keep changing the same type of nutrient and change it into different forms for different meals. So there are certain suggestions that I have for you, children, for this year's question paper for the year 2020. That is, please give importance to method of increasing nutritive value of food by the method of fermentation, parboiling, puffing, etc. Effect of cooking on food components like carbohydrates. What would be the effect on carbohydrates when cooked? As we all know, the complex carbohydrates are changed into simpler form. The proteins also are changed into simpler form, easily digestible. Minerals, vitamins, etc. many a times are lost during the process of cooking. So we have to be careful about that. Then another thing that you can give importance to is preliminary treatment of food. That is chopping, grinding, etc. That is also asked many a times. Now I move on to the second chapter, storage and preservation of food. In this chapter, you have to study why food is preserved. As we all know, the food, that is the fruits, vegetables, meat products, etc., cannot remain in the raw form for a long time. Hence, it is preserved and stored so that we can have it later on. So, in this context, 5 advantages of food preservation has been asked with examples for 5 marks. Points to be kept in mind to retain the nutritive value of green vegetables during the process of preservation. That again carries 5 marks. Now, what would be the advantages of food preservation? Like, for example, non-seasonal foods will be available at other times if they are preserved. And what would be the method of preservation? Canning, freezing are some of the methods. Like, for example, we can can pineapple slices and have it at a later date when it is out of season. Preservation of food like fruits, mango, pineapple definitely adds to the nutritional value of the food. Then, during the process of preservation, loss of food materials when available in bulk is available at other times when it is not available. So, like for example, we can make banana chips and keep it for a later date when banana is in season. It makes the cooking process much easy, faster, and very convenient. Like peas can be frozen. Now, we all know when we freeze the peas, it can be done. First, we parboil the peas. Parboiling means we partially boil the peas and then we freeze it at a lower temperature so that microbes do not grow on it. And yesterday, if you remember, I had taught you this is the bacteriostatic method of preservation. And there is another method of preserving peas, that is by dehydrating, where we remove the moisture content so that it lasts for a longer time. Because if moisture molecules are available, then microbes grow at a faster speed. So when we dehydrate a certain vegetable or fruit, it can be stored for a longer time as microbes will not be able to get the free water molecules and hence they cannot increase in number. Then preservation will help to add variety to the dishes like pickles, jams, etc. Then the second question again for 5 marks was how to retain the nutritive value of green leafy vegetables. As we all know that leaves generally soak up water very fast. So for this reason, we must not cut the leaves before washing. Retain the nutritive value of green leafy vegetables, we must not chop them. Before washing, they should be washed and then chopped so that we do not lose much of the nutrients. Then blanching the leaves and cooking them to the optimum point also prevents loss of heat liable nutrients. Blanching, as you know, is mild cooking. And then soaking it in cold water. Use the leaves when fresh because the nutritional benefits are lost after storage. Use variety of leaves. Yes, we get variety of sags in the market for optimum nutrition. Then cover the pan with a lid so that the steam remains inside when we cook the leafy vegetables. And do not use too much water as minerals and vitamins get lost. So only a small amount of water is to be used while cooking green leafy vegetables, and the water remaining after cooking the vegetables must not be thrown away because it includes a good amount of minerals and vitamins which can be used to make soups, curries, etc. And another point we have to keep in mind is that leafy vegetables must not be cooked with meal because then the iron content gets spoiled. A question based on this chapter asked was importance of food preservation for 5 marks and why low temperature is used in the preservation of food, which we all know is because of the bacteriostatic method. In this chapter, I would like to suggest that please give importance to causes for spoilage of food by enzymatic action, one of the reasons. Principles of food preservation also may be asked this year. Now moving on to my next chapter, meal planning for the family. Meal planning, as you know, is a very important part for a family because a family consists of elderly people, young adults, etc. So for this reason, a good meal planning has to be done, which that means that everyone in the family must get a balanced diet. So here in this connection, one question that came in 2019 was 5 non-nutritional factors to be kept in mind while planning a meal for the family, 5 factors to be observed while preparing a special diet for a diabetic patient. So as we all know, a diabetic patient must not be given a high carbohydrate diet because then definitely the level of sugar in the blood rises. And even if they take carbohydrates, they should be given complex carbohydrates, which is available in whole grains and not simple carbohydrates. That is not a good part of the diet. Complex carbohydrates can be given, that too in a limited quantity. And when I say in a limited quantity, I mean that the amount of carbohydrate given to a diabetic patient should be split in equal quantities right from breakfast, lunch to dinner. In one meal, we must not give the total amount of carbohydrate needed by a diabetic patient in the whole day. Now the question had come based on this chapter, what is adequate nutrition and a well-balanced diet is of vital importance in this context. What is the importance of a good breakfast? 5 marks. Objectives of planning family meals, again for 5 marks. Breakfast, as you all know, is considered to be one of the most important meals of the day because it gives us energy that is 1/4 of the daily protein requirements and 1/4 of the daily calorie requirements for maintaining efficiency in the late morning hours. It provides us with energy and should be a diet comprising of calcium, iron, fibers and proteins. So this is one meal which should not be omitted as it provides the person with 1/4 of the daily protein requirement and 1/4 of the daily calorie requirement. Again for 5 marks, we have the second part of this question, that what is the objective of planning family meals? The one of the most important part is it provides nutritional need for the family members. to save time, energy and money while planning meals. We must keep in mind the likes and dislikes of the family members. It should be a balanced diet and there should be variety in the meals. I would suggest certain parts of this topic to be studied for this year's paper, that is anorexia nervosa, bulimia, binge eating disorders. These are some of the problems today that is noticed in society, and we must keep in mind when we do meal planning for people suffering from anorexia nervosa, bulimia, binge eating, etc. Then special diets for diarrhea, diabetic and obesity patients also to be kept in mind. Next chapter is resource management. In this chapter, we talk about the safety factors to be maintained at home and also how adulterated food, what all measures can be taken to check adulterated foods. Adulteration, as I explained to you yesterday, can be either intentional or incidental. So in this context, the one question had come in 2019 for 5 marks, that what would be the 5 steps to ensure safety in the kitchen, define the meaning of the term quality, and 4 reasons for considering food to be of poor quality, again for 5 marks. So kitchen safety, as we all know, we must keep the LPG cylinders away from electric panels and they should not leak. Electric appliances should not be handled with wet hands. Circuits and heavy appliances to be grounded. Then regular maintenance should be done of the gas stove and electric appliances. There should be a fire extinguisher within reach for the family members. That's for 5 marks. The second part of this question was, what is quality? The meaning of the word quality. Quality, as we can say, is an optimum standard or the best standard of food compared to the legal standards as well as consumer acceptance. And any food is considered to be of bad quality if it is substandard or if the flavor has gone bad due to microorganisms acting on them, uneven size and shape of food, tampered packaging and broken foods, presence of extraneous substances like hair, pins, etc., then food is said to be of bad quality. Another question from this chapter had come in 2017, that is, what would be the safety measures to be taken at home to prevent fire, again for 5 marks. Then argemone, an adulterant, is many a times mixed with mustard and used to make mustard oil, but it has got a lot of health hazards, which was again asked for 5 marks. So they have mentioned that to prevent fire accidents at home, we must not leave the kitchen unattended, especially gas stoves. We must not wear synthetic clothes or very loose clothes while cooking. Cotton clothes are preferable. Give heater spaces. That means we should not keep a heater close to curtains, furniture, bedspreads, etc. Then we must have, if you have a smoker at home, then he should smoke outdoors. Then traditional open flame candles can be avoided. We can use battery operated candles. And in this way, we should always, an adult should pay attention if something is burning in the room. This would be for 5 marks. Now we move on to the second part, that is adulteration of mustard oil due to argemone seeds, which is actually got from the Mexican poppy plant, and the seeds look very similar to the mustard seeds, but have a rough and uneven surface and is very harmful to the human body as it is toxic in nature. Regular consumption of argemone seeds slowly we find gives rise to epidemic dropsy, which means a type of wet beriberi. Then watery fluid gets accumulated in the tissues, causing swelling in different parts of the body. Gastrointestinal disturbances start taking place. Swelling of feet, legs begin, hand, face, and slowly a person may even become blind due to glaucoma. Enlargement of the liver can also take place and can be fatal if a person gets a cardiac arrest. My suggestions would be for this chapter: remedial measures to be taken in case of suffocation and choking in children, incidental and intentional adulteration. So please pay attention to these topics included in this point. The next part of the syllabus, the topic is consumer protection. Consumers have to be very aware when they go shopping and buy goods for themselves. So keeping in view, the government has given some rights and responsibilities to a consumer which he should be aware of and take advantage of. And in this context, questions have been asked like what are the 5 advantages of packaged food in comparison to loose commodities sold in the market for 5 marks. Discuss 5 responsibilities of a consumer. So packaged food definitely has certain plus points. One is that the products are clean, adulteration can be avoided. When compared to loose sold products, they are not contaminated. The correct price, that is the maximal retail price, is printed on the label, and the commodity price cannot be changed by the seller, so he is unable to cheat the consumer. And even the correct weight of the packaged good remains intact. The labels on the packet will give us the correct information about expiry date, how to use, and all possible instructions for safety of the consumer. Packaging also prevents the goods from getting damaged during the process of transport. So definitely there are advantages of buying packaged foods. Then the 5 basic responsibilities of a consumer are that use the product as instructed. That is a very important responsibility for a consumer because ignorance can be dangerous to the consumer. The proof of purchase and cash memo should be maintained by the consumer because if he has to make any future claims, that will be important. Then he must know about the service warranty or guarantee period because unreasonable claims have to be avoided by the consumer. The bank account details should be confidential in case he has purchased it by using debit cards, etc. Any unauthorized transaction should be immediately reported to the bank or police. So this again carries 5 marks. So importance of consumer education and knowledge of standard marks used for protection of consumers can be important. The next topic would be human development, which mainly deals with the development of an adolescent, the cognitive, the social and emotional development of an adolescent, and explain 5 causes of delinquency among adolescents was asked in the year 2019. Along with the second part of this question, what would be the role of parents in guiding adolescents? Adolescents, as we all know, many a times get into juvenile crimes, and they have to be protected from it. And what would be the reasons why would they be said to have committed a juvenile crime is if they use substances like drugs or alcohol in excess, wrong ways of parenting like harsh and abusive ways of punishment is done, then it may force them to go in for juvenile crimes. They may sometimes select wrong friends, and as a result of this they may get into crimes. Then social labeling at young age can lead to personality changes and biases. Economic and social complications is another problem an adolescent faces, which forces him into committing crimes. The role of a parent is very important to guide an adolescent, along with teachers, of course. Parents should spare sufficient time with an adolescent. They should be positive in the approach and communication and give friendly advice. Accept and respect an adolescence. He is no more a child. It is the first step to adulthood. They need to be sensitive and responsible to siblings of different ages. They should give directions and suggestions in a positive manner and not overlook their views. In this context, a question was asked in the year 2018 that 5 factors that influence the adolescent while choosing their career, the role played by schools in the emotional and social development of a teenager, again for 5 marks. So, how does an adolescent choose a career? For this, definitely personal factors like interest, talent, marks are very important. Peer groups, social factors play an important role. Family and social influence. Economic factors definitely, affordability, availability of specific educational choice for an adolescent, again for 5 marks. The second part of the question is the role of a school in the life of a teenager. So a teenager, as we know, spends a good amount of time in school, so the school helps in a big way to develop the social and emotional quotient of a teenager. Peer groups, friends, teachers definitely will affect the mindset, moods and attitudes. Bullying friends, harsh teachers leave a bad impression on a teenager, while a positive and energetic surrounding in a school will boost a teenager to a healthy emotional and social development. You could read about peer pressure and substance abuse. You may be asked questions from these topics. Now, I complete my explanation of the subjective part of the theory paper. So with this, I finish my discussion about the theory papers of the previous years of ISC Home Science. Best of luck to all of you. And I would like to remind you that the ISC Home Science theory paper has been rescheduled and will be held on 11th July at 11 a.m. Please keep in mind, it's not in the afternoon, but at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Hello children, welcome back to ISC Sociology online video lectures. Like I had promised that today's session will be used specifically to discuss the important topics of those various chapters which are going to come for your examination. So I would want to dedicate today's session, today's special class, to discuss most of the question and answers. While I am doing this, let me tell you that I have decided to take up to pick and choose these certain topics after going through. I have given a lot of time and a lot of thought, and after that, I have come up with these topics. And also, I have gone through the examination papers of 2019, 18, and 17. So based on the previous year's question papers, based on the importance of topics, and based on the probability of which questions will definitely come or are likely to come in 2020, I have come up with these various topics. So let us look at the first chapter, that is on kinship. Now, kinship, marriage, family falls under this new chapter called the social institutions. Social institutions was introduced in 2015. So the children who were appearing for the 2016 examinations appeared for it. You just have to study two things from social institutions. One is the definition of social institutions, and the other one is features of social institutions. Coming to the kinship chapter, if you go through even past 10 years ISC question paper, what you will realize is you will definitely get one question on kinship. There are some years where the pattern of questions were completely different. Like prior to 2015, if you go through the ISC question papers, you will find that two questions used to come from kinship. Like for example, question 2A and 2B came from kinship. 3A, 3B came from marriage. So it was very easy that if you studied kinship chapter, you could attempt two questions from it. But from 2016, once the pattern changed, today you will get questions in a mixed bag format. Now what do I mean a mixed bag format? There is no rule that the two questions have to come from the same chapter. And there is no rule that the question has to begin from the first chapter. So if you look at the latest question paper of 2019, etc., there you will realize maybe you have the first question which comes from the social change and development chapter, which happens to be your last chapter. So you can have one question from the last chapter, one question from probably political organization, and you will find kinship, the questions, long questions on kinship, usually coming towards the end. So this is just to let you know that the framing pattern of the questions have obviously changed. Again, the directness of the question. Earlier it was so direct. Like for example, you have to give discuss the functions of family. But today, they would give you a statement like family is a universal social unit. In the light of this statement, discuss the role of family. Or do you think the role of family is changing in modern society or not? So instead of asking you direct questions, sometimes you do have questions where they are asking for your opinions, where they are asking for your suggestions. Or sometimes you have these debatable questions. Is it right or is it wrong? Are is it for the, you have to give answers like for the statement or against the statement. So coming back to the kinship chapter, after assessing the previous year's questions, I would want you to stress, I would want you to give more importance to these topics. These are for long questions. First, classificatory and descriptive terms. It has been many years, this question has not come, where you are supposed to discuss the features of classificatory and descriptive terms. Now, if you get only one question, classificatory term, it's easy. And most of the time, I would recommend you children, please write the answer in point form. 5 marks meaning we are looking for at least 6 to 7 points. So you can begin with something like the definition of classificatory term, where one term is used, all right, to call out people of several generation, or even one term is used to refer to people of different, various, you can say, social relationship, etc. So therefore, after you have defined, give examples of classificatory term, then you can talk about various tribes which use these classificatory terms. Then you can write about why these terms were used, in which society it was used, how come classificatory terms are not used right now, or how it was replaced by the descriptive terms. So at least you must have 6 to 7 points on classificatory terms. But if you have to write on both, if there is a comparative study between classificatory and descriptive terms, then I would recommend you, please make a table specially for comparison, and give it in point form. So if you have given the 6 to 7 points of differences between or similarities between the classificatory and the descriptive terms, then it's easier for the examiners to correct. So classificatory and descriptive term, degree of kinship. Whenever you start writing answers on degree of kinship, of course you will be defining, you will be giving examples, but I would recommend you children, please do the explanation with the help of a diagram. A diagram is very, very important. The diagram is there in your textbook. With the help of the diagram, please try and explain the various degrees of kinship. And while doing so, what you can do is, you can make the diagram, write the primary kinship separately, secondary, tertiary, so in paragraph form, and at the end you can give the conclusion. The next will be usages, like avoidance had come. Normally, avoidance, joking relationship, coward comes in the long answer section. If you have 2 usages to discuss, avoidance and joking relationship, it will be out of 5 marks. So how do you give the marks? How do you allot the marks? It will be 2.5 plus 2.5. 2.5 for discussing avoidance and 2.5 for discussing, let's say, coward. If you have a single usage like avoidance, full 5 marks will be allotted to it. Generally, if you are discussing avoidance, please mention the various opinions given by the anthropologists regarding why this usage was followed. Joking relationship, please do not forget the grandparents and the grandchildren. That is also necessary. Then coward, you have to mention the tribes, the society, reasons for following coward. Usually amicate and avunculate comes in the objective section, whereas technonymy also comes only for 2 marks. So in the past 10 years, if you just go through the question paper also, you must have realized there is no year, there is no, you can say, exam paper where you are going to find technonymy, amicate and avunculate in the long answer section. So regarding kinship, rest, please prepare the definition of kinship. Please prepare the 2 types of descent also. Examples of these types of kinship. Types of kinship came in 2019. That is why I have not written it on the board. Whereas types of kinship, please prepare it for the objective questions. So from the kinship chapter, this is what you all have to prepare. Next, I'll come to the marriage chapter. In marriage, again discussing the long questions, significance or importance of marriage. In most of your textbooks, you have, it goes by the topic of significance or nature, or you might have the functions of marriage, basically asking you why we need to marry. If in some years you had direct questions on the functions of marriage, some here you might find a statement on marriage, like marriage is a universal institution, etc. And in the light of this, you have to discuss the functions of marriage. Functions of marriage, how to go about it, I would recommend you, since it is out of 5 marks, please give the subheadings. Like, for example, marriage is necessary because for the regulation of sexual activity, or it could be because for passing on your property, that is inheritance, or even economic dependence, like, both division of labor is also there. So when you are writing these subtopics, it becomes easier. So write down the subheading first and then you start explaining. Next, types of marriage. In types of marriage, the most common question that you get is on polygamy. Discuss polygamy. So when you're doing that, you have to write down the definition of polygamy, meaning of polygamy, types of polygamy, that is polygyny and polyandry, and please mention the meanings as well as give the reasons why polygyny and polyandry was practiced in some societies. You can also quote the various tribes, the names of various groups which practice such kind of marriage. And the other type of marriage is hypergamy. Hypergamy is usually studied in the context of Hindu society. So when you are writing answers on hypergamy, please mention that this is a typical characteristic of a Hindu society. Do not forget the system of Kulinism that was practiced in Bengal. That also tells you what hypergamy is. And in Hindu society, we are basically studying about the caste, the status of the caste that goes up, but it also exists in other societies. Like it could be for, if you marry somebody with a higher education, with more property, etc., that can also be considered. So it exists both in Western societies, in Indian societies, but when we are focusing on the Indian society, then you have to talk about the Hindu society. So types of marriage, long question on polygamy, you have on hypergamy, and sometimes you get it on endogamy, exogamy, etc. Levirate and sororate normally comes in the objective section, where you need to differentiate between levirate and sororate. There has been no question so far on cousin marriage. You just have an endogamy, exogamy, and you have it on polygamy. The next is rules of marriage. Now, I have told you all earlier that the way of asking questions certainly changed in 2016. Whereas earlier they used to ask you, explain or discuss endogamy, exogamy, discuss polygamy. 1 year there was this question, discuss the rules of marriage. It was a pretty confusing question for the students who thought, like, what are we supposed to write regarding rules of marriage? Because in your textbook you have the types of marriage or forms of marriage. Rules basically meaning do's and don'ts. We have rules in school, we have rules at home. So therefore rules meaning the do's and don'ts. Here what happened was that in a society there are lots of prescribed manners of getting married. For example, endogamy, exogamy is one of them. Whom to marry, whom not to marry. So rules of marriage was basically asking you all these prescriptive marriages, like hypergamy is a prescriptive marriage. Everybody wants to get married where after getting married your status goes up. Or there are, like, you're not allowed to marry your cousins. You're not allowed to marry somebody from the same gotra. You have to marry somebody from the same tribe. So this rules of marriage was basically asking you about the do's and don'ts, the rules, the prescriptions, the prescribed manner which was there. So many of the children got very confused. But next time you get a question like that, you should not be confused. So these are the kind of types of marriages that you should be discussing. Again, coming to short questions, you will get define marriage. Please learn about that. Differentiate between endogamy and exogamy. Short questions on levirate and sororate. All right. Sometimes you might get short question on aims of Hindu marriage. Next, we come to family chapter. In family chapter, let me first start with the objective questions. Please learn the definition of family, definition of nuclear family, joint family, extended family. You can also learn the definition of avunculocal residence, or you can also learn the definition of patriarchal family, matriarchal family, etc. Coming to the long questions, please stress on features of family. Again, features of family, there are 7 to 8 features that you're supposed to write. My recommendation is to make your answer better, look better, please write down the subheadings and you discuss. Supposing you have written the subheadings, like it is persistence to change, because family will keep on changing. So you have to mention the subheading and then you go on with the explanation. Or you write something like a nuclear possession. Then the examiner knows what you are explaining. But if you have not written the subheading and give all the features in one long paragraph, then it is a burden for the examiners to keep looking into these keywords or these points that they have, that they are expecting out of you. So just a clear subheading, number the subheadings, 5 features, 6 features, 7 features, it becomes presentable, as well as you will score good marks. Next is functions of family. Again, functions of family, role of family means the same thing. So you write about the general functions of family, provides you material, emotional, financial security, gives you emotional support, right? The family is also, it binds all the individuals together. So when again function of family comes, you have it in point form. Please write the same thing as well. Then coming to types of family. There are so many types of family, depending on residence, depending on marriage, depending on your descent, depending on your, the kind of marriage, or whether your father has 2 wives or mother has 2 husbands, etc. So therefore, this types of family also, normally you get to write about features of nuclear family, features of joint family. You can do that. And another thing that is very common in ISC, especially regarding this family long question, is the disintegration of joint family, or the structural changes that are taking place in the family. Now, if in nuclear and joint family, you write down all the features, you compare it, etc., while writing an answer on the structural changes in the family, you can always refer to, while writing about the breaking up of joint families into nuclear families, mention some of the movies, because in some olden movies, because joint family is a typical Indian family system, in most of the movies of the past, we always saw a typical joint family system. Or even in most of the serials, you will find so many members living under one roof, which portrays, which shows us this typical joint family system which existed in India at one point of time. But today, if you look at the transition that is happening in the movies, you will no longer find they're staying under one roof, but you find one single member who owns the whole flat. Or you find even in serials like Friends, which were there in the Western society, Friends was staying together, and that also in one house. So therefore, these structural, please make references to movies, etc., to serials, etc., which also shows this transition, which shows this change that has come in the structure as well as the function of family. Next is religion chapter. Religion, please prepare on theories of religion. The theories that you have to study as per your syllabus is animism. You have to study naturism. You have to study totemism. So you must know exactly who propounded the theory, and you must know what are the contents of the theory. So animism, again I'm repeating, totemism and naturism. And please explain what is animism. Who propounded, like if you're talking about Tyler, came up with this theory of animism. Where does the word anima come from? What is the meaning of the word anima? Talk about the importance of soul, the belief in the spirits, the belief in the soul. And while you're talking about the belief, you also have to mention that it was there in the primitive societies, as well as you find it even in modern religion. You will find it in Christianity, who believes in the spirit. You will find it in the Muslims, who call it the Ruh. You find it in Hinduism, whom we refer it to as the Atma. So the belief of soul is there in each and every society. On the basis of this belief, we have this first theory called animism. Then you come to naturism, again talking about Max Muller, the power of nature, worshipping nature, various rituals which are offered. All right, so naturism basically with nature. Then totemism, how certain animals and fruits and flowers were considered as ancestors. Ancestor worship was always there among the primitive societies. And then how it turned into one of the theories of religion. Then functions of taboo, please mention that. Secularism, communalism, and fundamentalism are new topics. In my previous lecture, we have seen children often get confused between fundamentalism, communalism, and also secularism. But these are again questions where you do not have to write or quote things from the textbook. Please use your mind. Please engage in a lot of general awareness and then, current affairs, what is happening. And you always have to discuss these theories in the light of plural society. Plural meaning where you have multiple communities existing side by side. So in these, like plural society like India, which is varied and where we have lots of people following different culture, religion, and traditions, etc., then you have to discuss the importance of secularism. Is it absolutely necessary or not? And again, you have already done secularism in political science. You know what it stands for. So you can always refer to the importance of secularism in such society. Communalism, you have done it in history also. You have to make comparative study. What is communalism? Existed between which two religions in India? What was the effect or the impact of communalism? Please mention that. And who benefits from it? All right. What are the disadvantages? How does it affect the society? Please mention that. For this, you can always write answers by, if you have read some articles in the magazines or watched some particular television show, panel discussions, communal rights that have happened in India that can be mentioned just to make your answer more interesting. Next is fundamentalism. In fundamentalism, basically about old beliefs. People do not want to change. Education is a big no. They're still rooted in those ancient dogmas, etc. Fundamentalism, again, referring to some religion, all right, which defies change, where they do not want any kind of transformation. Again, why fundamentalism is a disadvantage, that what does it lead to, what is the impact of fundamentalism, that you can mention. Last but not the least, this is a new topic, functions and dysfunctions of religion. Again, give it in subheading. Normally, 3 functions and 2 dysfunctions. Sometimes you don't have to quote the textbook. You know it better from your personal experience. You can write the functions and dysfunctions. Sometimes, if the question is asking for the role of religion as given by Malinowski, Radcliffe Brown, or Durkheim, please give the exact things. So remember, I was telling you 15 minutes of reading time, use it wisely. Wisely meaning, why? Because that accuracy has to be there. You should know exactly what is expected out of you. So as soon as you see the function, please don't start writing about functions given by Malinowski, etc. Functions mean general function. But if the name of the person has been mentioned, then you have to be very correct regarding the theories that that person has put forward. Political organization. Political organization is a new chapter. Here, political organization deals mainly with the Panchayati Raj, and at the end we have a topic on Bal Panchayat. Since the introduction of this chapter, we have got 2 to 3 questions on political organizations back to back. So, significance of 73rd Amendment is very, very important. Introduction of Panchayati Raj, 1/3 reservation of seats, especially for the women in the local bodies, is very, very important. Then come to the features of Panchayati system. You have to discuss the 3-tier system. Then you talk about the tenure of the Panchayat. Then you talk about the functions of the Panchayat, from where do they get the finance, how the elections are conducted. That also can be done point-wise. 6 to 7 points will do. Then, last but not the least, on Bal Panchayat, till date there has not been a single long question on Bal Panchayat. No long question. However, one of the years you had to define Bal Panchayat. It's a very short chapter, political organization. Prepare it very, very properly. And you can relate political organization. Later, I will come to Manrega, where we discuss some of the functions of the Panchayat. So you can make a comparative study over there. In Panchayat also, my recommendation is, I know most of you are already prepared. You have done your work. So now you can go through the videos. In YouTube, you will find excellent videos on how the Panchayat works. You will find excellent lectures, especially online lectures also, on the 3 tiers of the Panchayat. So in your free time, you can just go through it for a better understanding. Next is economic organization. In economic organization, there are 3 new topics which were introduced: Jajmani system, agrarian economy, and Manrega. Out of the 3, Jajmani and agrarian has already come. But Manrega, there has not been a single question on Manrega. It's a very, very interesting topic. Please go through it. In economic organization, before you attempt any question, please, I want you to stress on the economic concepts. What is economic activity? What are free goods? What are economic goods? What is profit? What is loss? What is utility? Understanding economic concepts is very, very important before you go to this particular chapter. Here we are studying about tribal economies. Because we're studying about the tribal economies, especially focusing on the Indian tribes, that is why you will get a long question sometimes on the economic organization of Indian tribes. So here also, if you get a 5-mark question, then what you can do is write it in point form. You can start from agriculture and handicrafts and pastoralism. Short questions sometimes come on pastoralism, shifting axe cultivation, all right, food gathering. These are some of the economic organizations, and make sure you write a little bit, describe a little bit about that occupation, and give the names of various tribes which also practice it. So you will have, I think, about 5 to 6 different economic organizations practiced by the various tribes in India. Next is again on Jajmani, agrarian, and Manrega. You will find excellent YouTube videos. Please watch it. Next is tribal India. Please study the features of tribes for short as well as long questions. Features of tribes can definitely be written down with subheadings, all right, in points along with subheadings. Functions of dormitories, please understand that, because in the next chapter we'll study about education. Education in modern society. Dormitory is education in primitive society. So how did the tribals educate the children? What form of education was given to the children? That will come under the dormitory chapter. Next is problems of the tribals along with the solution. You have 12 problems given in your book. Whenever you discuss problems, you will have to do it with 3 subheadings, all right? One is causes of the problems, the effects of the problems, and last but not the least, please write down the solution or the measures to counter those problems. So you have 3 paragraphs. Whenever you discuss any problem, give the causes, give the impact or the effect, and at the end, please suggest few measures to eradicate those problems as well. A long question on the legislations or the laws that the government has come up with to discuss, to sort of counter these tribal problems already came in 2019. And over there, you have to study about LAMs and small-scale industries and Indira Gandhi's policies, etc. But that has already come in 2019. Next one is the second last chapter, social stratification. Many new topics are there like ethnocentrism, racial prejudice, which is not there in most of the textbooks. Please make sure that your syllabus is updated. Social stratification, please study features of social stratification. Here we are studying about social stratification referring to the class group and the caste group. So you have to understand what is social stratification. No society is equal, all right? We have to begin with that. Then you come with, because you have to study caste and class, this year give more stress on features of caste because the comparison for caste and class came in 2019. Study gender issues. Back to back, you got 3 questions on gender issues. 3 years, you got back-to-back questions on gender issues. Once again, very, very interesting topic. Go through it. Mention a lot of movies that are being made on gender issues, especially the Indian cinema. You can just refer to the Indian cinema. Some of these breakthrough movies, mention some of the activists who are engaged with these kind of issues. That also will make your answers interesting. You can, and in history also, in one of your syllabus where you are doing the protest movement, there is a mentioning of feminist movement there. Feminist movement in Europe as well as feminist movement in India, both are there in history. So you can use those contents especially to write answers on the gender issues here. Sanskritization, Brahminization, how these class and caste system declined later on, what are the factors behind it. Please be very, very clear regarding the concepts of Brahminization and Sanskritization as well. Now let me wrap up today's lecture discussing the social change and development. Social change and development, first and foremost, again long questions, study the features of social change, meaning and function of education. Meaning and function of education seems like a hot favorite of ISC. It has come so many times. Meaning, role, function of education. RTE, a newly added topic, RTE, where they have given you, all right, in clause form, they have given you the various features of RTE. You have to write that. Then the social movements, you just have to study 3 social movements. One is the movement in Telangana, the movement in Chhattisgarh, and the Irom Sharmila, that is a feminist movement of Manipur. Out of the 3 movements, Telangana and the Maoist movement in Chhattisgarh has come many times, but Irom Sharmila, the feminist movement, has not come. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you feminist movement will come, but when you're preparing social movements, please understand the objectives behind the movement. Who gave the leadership? What were the programs of the movement? What was the impact of the movement? These things have to be mentioned while you are discussing the social movements. So with this, I would like to end today's session. I hope it was fruitful, beneficial. I hope you're going to make use of it. These are only suggestions. Dear children, let me repeat it. These are just suggestions. Maybe the probability is there. I cannot vouch, I cannot assure you that these will come because you already have prepared. prepared. So once again, I would like to wish all the students the very best of luck. Please do your exams properly. I hope you use the guidelines and maybe that will become fruitful. With these lines, I would like to end today's lecture. Thank you very much.